How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Weather Sponge 1000. Today is January 4th, 2022, and today we're going to focus on our next major northeast snowstorm that could dump heavy snow throughout a large area of the northeast, including some of the major cities in the northeast. And we'll also talk about this clipper system that's moving through the northern Midwest that could dump potentially up to 6 inches of snow in some areas in the Midwest, as well as other snowstorms that will impact the United States this week. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current radar for the lower 48, and of course, we're seeing snow showers in the northern portion of the Midwest at this time associated with the clipper system that's moving through, and it's going to dump a decent amount of snow throughout the northern Midwest. You see that there's a pretty large area of snow showers. I'd say the snow is mostly in the moderate range. There isn't a ton of instability associated with this trough to allow for a lot of convection to occur around center circulation, but there is at least enough moisture associated with this trough to the point where we're going to see a decent amount of moderate snow bands develop and move through the northern Midwest and dump 3 to 6 inches of snow, especially further eastward closer to the Great Lakes region. So you need to watch out for some slick road conditions over the next couple hours throughout the the northern Midwest. But we're also going to take a look at this trough that's coming off the Pacific Northwest that will later become our next major northeast snowstorm, and currently it's dumping a decent amount of snow throughout the Pacific Northwest, more specifically the higher elevations of the Pacific Northwest. Portland, it's mainly a rain event for you guys, but if you go only a couple feet higher in elevation, you're going to see the snowfall and snowfall accumulation. So if you're in the higher elevations, watch out for some heavier snowfall associated with this trough moving through, and this will later become a threat for the northeast in the future. So let's first take a look at this next northeast snowstorm that's expected to occur, and it's expected to occur within the very near future. I'm talking only about 72 hours out, a little bit less than that, where as soon as Thursday, you guys throughout the northeast and even the Ohio River Valley could begin experiencing impacts from this storm. So let's first take a look at the GFS model. This is as of the 18Z run, the latest run of the GFS model that just came out. And if we were to take a look at that, let's first take a look at the surface and precipitation map, and you see there's a clipper system I was talking to you guys about, and there's just enough snow showers associated with it and moisture that we're going to see 3 to 6 inches of snow in the northern Midwest. So watch out for that. This should happen over the next 24 hours, but I want to now take a look at this trough that's in the Pacific Northwest right now, and you see that eventually this trough should move further southeastward, and we're going to see heavy snow associated with it in the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountain ranges, where you could receive over a foot of snow in some areas in the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountains. So watch out if you're within those areas of the Rocky Mountains, right around the higher elevations, way up into the upper levels of the atmosphere. But if we were to continue to move forward, you see that another trough moves through the Pacific Northwest, so make sure to watch out for even more heavy snowfall. But I want to take a look now at this trough, where you see that this original low pressure system will sort of fizzle out as it moves eastward, and instead another low pressure system that's pretty much a derivative of this low pressure system right around Colorado will develop along this jet stream dip, because you see that as this first clipper system moves through, there's going to be a decently strong northwesterly flow, and that should create pretty pronounced jet stream dip for a high amount of instability to occur in the southeast for a new low pressure system to develop, sort of similar to the snowstorm we just saw in the mid-Atlantic just yesterday, where we saw a low pressure system develop spontaneously in the southeast as a result of a pronounced jet stream dip, and it created this major northeast snowstorm. And it seems like the same scenario will occur again, where we're going to see just enough of a jet stream dip that's induced by this strong northwesterly flow, bringing that Arctic air further southward for a pronounced jet stream dip to occur and a more unstable environment in the southeast. And you see that as this storm heads further northeastward, of course, the air is very unstable, so we're going to continue to see lift associated with this low pressure system, and as a result, more convection, which means that the area of snow and precipitation overall will increase, because you see now that Tennessee, the higher elevations of West Virginia, the higher elevations of North Carolina, the western portion of Virginia, and even Kentucky is getting involved in some snowfall as the snow area continues to expand, and we even see we're even beginning to see higher rates of snowfall, where we're seeing the darker shades of blue over the Delmarva Peninsula and southern New Jersey. A lot of the same areas that just got impacted by this major snowstorm in Virginia, which unfortunately trapped a lot of people in cars along the Interstate 95 corridor. Hopefully, this snowstorm isn't that bad, but there is certainly that possibility that if this low pressure system does develop fast enough, we could see this snowstorm become at least be around the same magnitude as the snowstorm we already experienced in the Midwest. But you see that this is also affecting the major cities of the Northeast. Washington, D.C. again is getting involved. Philadelphia is getting involved. New York City is getting involved. And we're seeing a decent amount of snow throughout New Jersey, throughout Long Island, and even some New England is getting involved. Boston will get involved in this. And you see that this low pressure system sort of rapidly intensifies as it heads further eastward, of course, because we're going to see an even more pronounced jet stream dip to a point where we could even see a negative tilt with the jet stream, which would rapidly intensify this low pressure system, because you would have the warm air essentially just north of the cool air, and since the laws of physics don't like when very dense air mass is just south of a very light air mass, it's going to quickly attempt to fill in for the lighter density air that's just to the north of the low pressure system. And as it does so, it creates rapid rise of air in the atmosphere for this storm to pretty much accelerate when it comes to intensification as it heads further northeastward. And that's entirely what's expected from the GFS model. And in terms of the snowfall you should expect based on what the GFS model is saying, so this again, this extends to right around the 3-day mark, so there's still definitely time for the forecast to iron out over the next several days. But you see that the GFS model is expecting a large area of 3 to 6 inches of snow throughout Virginia, throughout West Virginia, a lot of the same areas that just got impacted by the major snowstorm yesterday. And the Delmarva Peninsula is again receiving the worst of snowfall, where you could maybe experience 6 to 12 inches of snow if the GFS model was 100% correct, which is still very difficult to determine if it is. It certainly is more certain that we're going to see some sort of snowstorm in the Northeast, because this forecast only extends 3 days out, and the European model is agreeing with it. So I'd say the certainty is there when it comes to the fact that there's going to be a major snowstorm. The question really remains how much snow, and really the trajectory matters too. You see New York City is receiving, I'd say, around 1 to 3 to maybe 3 to 6 inches. You're right on the border in New York City. Philadelphia, same thing. And Boston's receiving right around 3 to 6 inches. And the southern portion of Maine is receiving right around 3 to 6 inches as well. So but you see that a lot of these major cities are pretty close to the snow dry line. And there's still that possibility that the low pressure trajectory moves further eastward than expected and maybe doesn't bring much snowfall at all along the major cities. That's certainly a possibility. However, there's still an equal chance that this low pressure system moves westward and brings even more snowfall to the major cities. So that's definitely something we need to pay close attention to over the next several days. While I'd say the certainty of a snowstorm is high at this point, depending on where exactly this low pressure system is located will make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall accumulation you will receive in the Northeast. So it's best to just be aware of this in the Northeast over the next 3 days, because it seems likely that a snowstorm will approach you guys, but it's just a matter of where that low pressure trajectory is. And also, it will depend on how fast this low pressure system develops, because if this low pressure system develops a little bit faster than anticipated, where there's a little bit more instability, we're more likely to see a powerful low pressure system impact the Northeast earlier, and that would mean more snowfall and higher rates of precipitation, which would make it a more major snowstorm. However, there's also a possibility that this low pressure system ends up developing slower than expected, and that would mean that there would be a decrease in the rate of precipitation compared to the forecast currently, and also that would mean less snowfall accumulation in general from the Northeast. So those are factors we need to keep in mind. We need to pay close attention to this Clipper system moving through, because and especially the northwesterly winds associated with it, because how strong those northwesterly winds will determine the amount of unstable air that will be in the southeast, and as a result, how fast this storm will develop, and it'll also determine the trajectory of this jet stream. So this is going to be something we're going to need to pay close attention to over the next 24 to 48 hours. This trough, because the strength of those northwesterly winds will ultimately determine the track of this low pressure system, and will make big strides in terms of certainty with the forecast when it comes to snowfall accumulation. But I will say that it's pretty likely that the Northeast will experience a snowstorm out of this, like I've been saying. So make sure to, I'd say, prepare in the mid-Atlantic and along the eastern coast and further northward along the extreme eastern portions. I'd say prepare, because it's better to be safe than sorry. We're pretty certain that we're going to see a snowstorm along northeast coast, and for New York City, Philadelphia, Boston, the forecast is right around 3 to 6 to 1 to 3. So you want to prepare as if you're going to receive that amount, but make sure to also be aware that the forecast is certainly subject to change depending on trajectory of this storm. Let's take a look now at the European model, where the European model is also forecasting the same thing, which definitely makes the forecast a little bit more certain, where it's taking a low pressure system up the east coast, and it's bringing snow throughout the east coast as well. So it isn't one of those forecasts where the two computer models were completely different, which is certainly good news, because that definitely raises a certainty that we're going to see a major snowstorm in the Northeast. And in terms of snowfall, it's pretty similar, but there are some key differences. For example, in New York City, Philadelphia, and even Washington, D.C., the forecast in the GFS model is closer to 3 inches, maybe 3 to 6, or 1 to 3 inches. For the European model, they're only expecting on the low end of 3 to 6 inches, which means around 1 to 3 inches of snow. So the European model is taking slightly less snow, but it's very, very similar otherwise, I'd say. So there's pretty high certainty that in New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. at this time, you'll experience maybe around 1 to 3 inches, maybe a little bit more than that. But you need to pay close attention to the trajectory of this storm, because that will really determine how much snow you actually receive. And it's still subject to change, because we're still 3 days out, and a lot could change in 3 days, especially when it comes to weather. So make sure to be aware of that throughout the Northeast for the next 3 days. But in terms of other things that are going on when it comes to snowfall, you see that the northern Midwest should experience a pretty large area of 1 to 3 to maybe 3 to 6 inches in isolated areas, especially closer to the Great Lakes, because in the Great Lakes, you're of course going to have that lake effect occur, and that would certainly increase the snowfall rates. That'll increase the convection for the snowfall rates to increase, which ultimately will result in higher snowfall accumulation around, if you're very close to the Great Lakes, where even some areas, based on what the European model is saying, right in the extreme northern portion of Wisconsin and Michigan, you could experience over 6 inches of snow. So you need to be aware of that throughout the northern Great Lakes, because while this won't be considered major, this should still could cause some slick road conditions over the next several days in the northern Midwest. So you need to keep in mind of that. And in terms of when this will end, so let's take a look at the precipitation forecast provided from the European high resolution radar. So if we were to continue to move forward, you see that we should see the snow continue throughout the North Dakota, extending to Minnesota, and then this should primarily be out in the United States by Thursday, right when this next snowstorm is developing in the southeast. So over the next 48 hours in Michigan, this should begin right around the Wednesday timeframe and pretty much end right around Thursday. So make sure to be aware of that throughout the northern Great Lakes. This should happen right around the Wednesday or Thursday timeframe, and you should receive right around 3 to 6 inches of snow. The certainty is high with this. It's only this forecast is only around this event is only around 24 hours away from you guys in Michigan and Wisconsin, so the certainty is pretty high, and the GFS model is forecasting pretty much the same thing, so that pretty much adds on to the fact that we're very certain with the forecast at this time. So make sure to keep that in mind in the northern Midwest for the this week. Now, if we were to take a look at the Northwest, you see that you guys are expecting a heavy amount of snow over the next several days. It should be quiet further southward, right around the Sierra Mountain ranges of California, which for some people is a relief because you guys did receive feet of snow from these past several snowstorms, but now it seems to be slowing down right around Sierra Mountain region. But you see that the Pacific Northwest is still going to receive feet of snow in the higher elevations, and a large area, it's 2 to 3 feet. So make sure to be aware of that. This extends to the higher elevations of Idaho, Oregon's getting involved, Wyoming, right around Yellowstone National Park, you could receive over a foot of snow, and even maybe Denver, Colorado could receive 1 to 3 out of this next Clipper system moving through that's associated with this Northeast Snowstorm. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind throughout Denver as well, that this might not only impact the higher elevations, but it could impact you guys as well. So make sure to keep that in mind this week right around Denver, Colorado. And here is my snowfall forecast when it comes to this major Northeast snowstorm, this potential major Northeast snowstorm. So for the big cities such as New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., I'm expecting 3 to 6 inches of snow, but I wouldn't be surprised if my forecast does lower to 1 to 3 based on the recent computer model guidance. We have to see if that trend continues, but right now expect 3 to 6 inches of snow throughout these areas. And while that might not sound like a lot, you need to be aware that it doesn't take a lot of snow, especially when that snow falls at a rapid pace to cause havoc on the roadways. So make sure to stay prepared and prepared accordingly throughout the big cities in the Northeast, as well as other areas in the 3 to 6 inch category. 1 to 3 just outside of that, extending to upstate New York. Some of this snow is associated with this Clipper system that's going to move through. That's moving through the northern Midwest, so make sure to keep that in mind in upstate New York. That could happen earlier for you guys. 1 to 3 further southward, where the storm is just developing, right around Tennessee, Kentucky, and a lot of the Ohio valleys involve 1 to 3 inches, so make sure to stay prepared for that. And you see that in the extreme coastal areas of the Northeast, I'm expecting a little bit of a higher 6 to 12 inches, as it seems like the trend is that the low pressure system will take a track very far eastward, which means that the snow will be maximized right around the extreme eastern portions of the Northeast, where you could experience over 6 inches of snow. This could include Boston as well, so make sure to prepare in the extreme eastern portions of Massachusetts, where you could receive 6 to 12 inches of snow associated with this next low pressure system. But again, this subject change, so make sure to be aware of changes in the future. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.